Hi, I'm Tia. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to share with you all of the books I read during the month of April. In April, I read 15 books that I'm going to share with you today, and I also read 31 volumes of manga, and I'm going to do that wrap up in a separate video. So if you are interested in manga at all, be sure to check that one out later on in the week. In April, I actually read 7 Book of the Month Club books, but 6 of them I've already talked about in one of my Book of the Month Club TBR update videos, so I will leave that video linked in the description box down below if you would like to hear more of my in-depth thoughts about these books. But today I'm just going to show you what those ones were that I've already talked about and tell you my star rating. So the first one that I read was The Giver of Stars by Jojo Moyes. I really loved this historical fiction book about the pack horse librarians in Kentucky. I buddy read this with Anne from Elizabeth Ann Reads, who I will also link down below. Be sure to go check her out. But this was for sure a 5-star read, and I'm glad I got to it in the month of April. I read The Shadows by Alex North, which I believe is classified either as a thriller or a horror, somewhere in between. I was actually pretty disappointed by this one and thought that the writing was very repetitive, also sort of slow and a bit boring, and I gave this one 2 stars. I finally read The Heart Principle by Helen Hoang, one of the books that I had been looking forward to for a while, but had been a little bit nervous to pick up because I'd heard that this was such a heavy book in comparison to the other 2 in this trilogy. However, I ended up absolutely loving this one. I do think that this may veer more into women's fiction because it definitely follows a lot more of the heroine's journey and doesn't focus quite as much on the romance as some other romance books that I've read before. However, there is definitely a romance in here that I did quite enjoy. I loved both of these characters, and ultimately I ended up giving this one 5 stars. I read The Holdout by Graham Moore, which is a book that focuses on a jury that is sort of having a 10-year reunion of the case decision that they all were a part of 10 years previously, obviously. I really enjoyed this courtroom type drama, and I gave this one 4 stars. I read The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Booley. I gave this one 4 stars. It was unlike anything I've ever read before, following a Ojibwe girl who's 19 years old and is trying to figure out a mystery that is affecting her community. Then finally, I read Imposter Syndrome by Kathy Wang. This one I was not so sure about, honestly. I kind of went into it with an apprehension, and I ended up giving it 2 stars. So I guess I was sort of right to be apprehensive about it. It turned out to be a very slow-moving, boring type of suspense mystery. I don't even know what you would categorize it, but it's definitely not a thriller. It's following a Russian spy who is working in like a tech company in the Silicon Valley, which sounds like it would be interesting, but I can assure you it was not. I read 2 books with my husband this month for the book club that we host here on my channel. That's called the No Cover Charge Book Club. First one I finished up at the very beginning of the month. It's called A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. I'm sure you've probably heard of this one. This is the 2nd book in this series, and we did a live show on this one at the very, like I said, at the very beginning of the month. I will leave that live show link down in the description box if you would like to go and check that out. We, discussed it way more in depth there than I'm going to do here, but I enjoyed this book. It's not a new all-time favorite for me, but it is a lot of fun to get immersed in this world and follow these characters. I definitely have a soft spot for Rhysand, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with him in the 3rd book, which we do plan on reading at some point together. If you haven't already checked this out and you're into fantasy at all, I'm sure you've already read this if you like fantasy, so you probably don't even need to hear me say anything about it. Our main book club pick for the month, we just did our live show this past Friday, and I will leave that linked as well if you would like to hear more of our thoughts on this one. But we did read Project Hail Mary for the month of April. This is by Andy Weir, and I'm sure you've already heard about this one as well. This is a sci-fi book about a man who is living in a world where the sun is gradually getting less and less bright. And so he is part of this group of scientists and other people around the world who are trying to figure out exactly what they need to do to rectify this situation. And that's all I really want to tell you about this book. I don't know, you probably heard more than that from someone else already, I'm sure. But I had really high expectations for this book. I had heard so many great things about it. It seemed like it was topping a lot of favorites lists last year. So I went in this expecting it to be a 5-star read and better than The Martian. And it just did not work out that way for me. I don't know if it was because my expectations were so high or what it was, but I ended up really enjoying and loving one of the main characters in here. And that person was the only reason why I found this even remotely enjoyable. And I ended up giving it 3 stars. I would give that character 5 stars if I could. But I personally felt like the science jargon and the science explanations were too much. I felt like they went way into depth. The calculations, I mean, were all out into like the 1000th degree. Everything was just over explained, and I felt like it was too unnecessary. All of the over the top explanations. Like, I understand giving me a little bit of explanations for things, but they were just too in depth in here, and I did not find that enjoyable at all. So my overall enjoyment level would be a 3. It would have been lower if it wasn't for one of these characters who I don't want to tell you about because I feel like that would be a spoiler. But yeah. I feel kind of guilty about this because I feel like I should love it because everyone else does. But there you have it. It didn't live up to my expectations. And then in April, I also buddy read the beginning of a new Alona Andrews series. Well, new to me, not new to Alona Andrews. This has been out for a while, but this is Burn for Me by the husband and wife writing team Alona Andrews. And I buddy read this with Amy over at Zoe Beck. I will also leave her linked in the description box, so go and check her out if you haven't already. But this is a urban fantasy series that's taking place in an alternate Houston where there are magic users. Magic was sort of discovered in the 1800s, and it has worked its way into society, and different families are born with different type of magic and different type of abilities, and some of them have really high abilities, some are much lower, some are more useful, some are not. And this book is following a girl who is sort of like an investigator for different types of things. She normally has a, like lower end, kind of less high stakes clients and cases that don't involve very much danger, but in this book, of course, she gets wrapped up in this very dangerous case with a very dangerous person that she is supposed to be trying to find, and she gets involved with multiple different types of magic users. And it was really interesting, and I really enjoyed both of our main characters. I hate this cover, which I've said multiple times, and it's so weird because I don't feel like this cover depicts what happens in this book at all. I don't think this right here ever happens in this book at not one time, so I don't understand why it's on the cover. It's very, very strange. This makes it look like it's a romance, which it was not. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I gave this 4 stars. We are planning on continuing on. If you are interested in urban fantasy at all and you think this sounds interesting, just don't look at this cover. This cover has nothing to do with what's on the inside of this book. Then I reread some of my favorite books from when I was in elementary school or middle school, and that is the first and second book in the Sweet Valley Twins series. So when I was in elementary school, these and the Babysitter's Club and the Fabulous 5 were 3 of my absolute favorite series, along with like Little House on the Prairie. Those were the books that I read all the time. Decided to reread these and then let my kids read them as well. We have like the first 12 books in the series, so I'm planning on reading them over the next few months, and my kids have been reading them too. So it was a lot of fun to revisit Elizabeth and Jessica. If you don't already know what this series is about, it follows 2 twins who live in California. Their names are Elizabeth and Jessica. Elizabeth is more of the quiet, intellectual, very friendly one, and Jessica is the one who's into boys and makeup and being popular. At the beginning of the series, they are sort of struggling with how they are going to deal with their differences as they grow older, because they have been used to doing all the same things and dressing alike. And this year, I think it's the beginning of their 6th grade year, if I'm not mistaken, they are wanting to do different things. You know, Elizabeth wants to be on the newspaper, and Jessica wants to join this like social club called the Unicorn Club, which is really just full of a whole bunch of really popular girls. And Elizabeth, you know, is struggling with that because she wants them to be together like they always have been. So it was a lot of fun to revisit them and to remember. I don't know, I was wondering if I would feel the same way about them as I did when I was little. I remember that I never liked Jessica when I was little. I always liked Elizabeth, but it was always fun to read about the drama that Jessica got involved in. And that was the same way that I felt this time. I find Jessica to be really mean. I think she's probably even more mean to me now than she was when I was a kid. And then in this one, Jessica is super mean in this one. I was so aggravated about this book. And yeah, Jessica. If you've read these books or any of the Sweet Valley books, I would be really interested to know, you know, which one was your favorite when you were growing up and how you feel about them now. But it was really interesting. I'm looking forward to reading the other, you know, 10 or so that we have on our shelves. I also have like a Sweet Valley saga that used to be one of my favorite books as well, and I would like to reread that when I get done with these. We went by the library, I think it was last week, and I ended up checking out 6 books, which, you know, why do I do this? I have all these books on my TBR. I don't know why I check out books from the library too, but I did end up reading Measuring Up. This is by Lily Lamotte, and this is a middle grade graphic novel. It's following this young girl who has just moved with her family from Taiwan to Seattle. And she is really having a hard time because she misses her Ama, her grandmother, so much. And she really wants to find a way to get her grandmother to come and visit her. And she ends up entering this cooking contest to try and win the prize money to be able to bring her grandmother over. So it was really a great story. It's really about, you know, her trying to figure out how to meld her two worlds together, how, you know, to be part of her new society in America and the friends that she has there and her school that she has there, but also, you know, still be involved in her Taiwanese culture as well, and to sort of teach her friends about this and share parts about her culture with them as they share parts about American culture with her, and then also about this cooking contest and her family dynamics. It was just a really good story. It was very touching and heartwarming. I ended up crying over this. I loved it a whole lot, and my kids read it too and they enjoyed it as well. So if you haven't read this one already, I definitely recommend it. Last on my list, I did read 3 new releases this month, in the month of April. I have one that I pre-ordered actually back in 2021 because I knew this was coming out and I was going to want to read it immediately, and that is The No-Show by Beth O'Leary. This obviously is her brand new book that came out in April. It came damaged, which, you know, I was bummed about, but then I thought, well, that just gives me permission to break the spine. So this is really not in good condition anymore, even though I just got it. This book was so good. I gave this 5 stars. I love Beth O'Leary's writing, and I just love the stories that she comes up with, and I love the characters and the relationships that she develops in her books. And I don't want to tell you what this is about at all. Like, I went into this completely blind. I didn't read the back until after I was about halfway through. I decided to read the blurb, and I feel like the blurb gives either, I don't know if I'm going to say too much away or gives you the wrong impression about this book. So I would recommend not reading the blurb, not reading any reviews about this. Just go and read this book. It was so good. I just really loved this book. It could be because I have a soft spot for Beth O'Leary. I really connect with her writing, and I thought that the story was so well developed, and I loved all of these characters, and yeah, it was just so good. So go and read this book and then message me so we can discuss it, because it was really amazing. I also read Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez this month. This is one that I had through NetGalley. It just came out in April. This one is the brand new start of a series, so you don't have to have read anything else before you read this one. At the end of this book, she does say that Bree is going to get her book in 2023. So Bree is actually the best friend of the main character in this book. So this is the start of a new series. So definitely jump in here if you're looking to try out Abby Jimenez. Really enjoyed this one. I gave it 5 stars and it was just a lot of fun. It follows this ER doctor who is on her way home from like a family event, and she is driving through this small town, and I think she swerves to avoid a raccoon and ends up in a ditch, and this guy pulls over to try to help her, get her out of the ditch. They end up chatting or whatever, and long story short, they end up seeing each other, of course, the romantic interest, but they're very, very different. She comes from this family of doctors who has like this long lineage of doctors, and they're very well off, and he, on the other hand, lives in this very small town. Everyone in this small town is basically struggling to make ends meet, and she knows that she would never be able to introduce him to her family. They would never accept him, and she can't move there. And anyway, so basically they're just from completely different worlds. The book was just so touching. I loved both of these characters. I really enjoyed watching their relationships grow, and I enjoyed watching them, get to know each other, and it was just fun and fluffy and cute. And there was a goat in pajamas. Okay, there was a goat in pajamas, and her best friend in this book, her name is Bree. Like I said, she is hilarious, and I love their friendship. Everything Bree said made me laugh out loud. I can't wait for Bree's book. Anyway, I recommend this book. Go and check it out if you like contemporary romance at all. Very last book that I read this month was Games in a Ballroom by Gentry Flint. So this is an art copy because this book actually comes out on May 3rd, which is just a couple more days away. So if you were interested in it, you can pick it up very, very soon. This is a historical romance that does not have any bedroom scenes in it at all. There is only a few kisses in here, but I do think, on the back it says clean content suitable for all ages. I'm assuming they mean over 18 because over 16, because it's not like I would give this to my 8-year-old or my 12-year-old, because even though there are not bedroom scenes, there's still a lot of talk of gambling and drinking, and when they do kiss, it's pretty descriptive, the attraction that they feel for each other. And so I'm assuming that they mean teens and older. Okay, but anyway, I digress. This is following 2 people who have known each other their whole lives. I believe they grew up as neighbors. Dad's new money, and he's not part of the ton. He's not a landed gentry or anything like that, but he wants his daughter to marry someone with a title so that he can progress in society. Our friend, the male lead of this book, is a gentleman, but he's the son of a second son of an earl. So he's not going to have a title. And so, of course, her dad does not want them to be together, and she knows this. The main guy has developed feelings for her, and he knows that her dad would never want them to be together. So he's trying to slowly woo her and make her realize that he could be the one for her, that he wants her to see him as more than just, this friend that she grew up with. And so he devises this game of it for them to play throughout the season during all of the different social events that they attend, her and his sister and his 2 friends. So it's not just the 2 of them that are playing this game. That might be a little bit weird. So there's 5 of them, and it's really a lot of fun. It was cute. The characters were very likable. I enjoyed the games that they were playing, and I think the best part about it was the main guy's friend group. Their bro friendship or whatever was I just love them so much. They had amazing banter, the 3 of them. One of them was dark and brooding and quiet, mysterious, and the other one was this fun type of, I don't know, guy who just, he he didn't have any responsibilities and he just did things that he wanted to do without worrying about anyone else. And so they were all very different, and the dynamic of the three of them when they got together was just a lot of fun to read about. So I think that was the highlight of the book for me, and I sort of would like for there to be a sequel to this so that I can get the other two guys' stories as well. But this is Gentry Flint's debut novel, and I think that it's great for a debut. It's not like a new all-time favorite, but I could see myself like rereading this as like a comfort read. It's just one of those books that you can sort of sink into and enjoy and not have to be too stressed out about while you're reading it. Yeah, it was a good book. If you're into historical romance and this sounds like fun, definitely give it a try. Okay, those are all of the books that I read this month during the month of April. Let me know if you have read any of these books and what you thought about them. What was your favorite thing that you read during the month of April? Let's chat down in the comments about all of these books and all the books that you read. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're all doing well, and I will see you next time. Bye.